Hello there, I'm Lena Hassanel and you're watching Nightline. News making the headlines. Malaysia Singapore discuss resolving outstanding bilateral issues. Also, government to lift subsidies for chicken from November 1st. Good morning. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said Malaysia intends to reciprocate Singapore's growing investments and trade in Malaysia, with serious attempts to resolve most of the outstanding issues between both nations. Among the pending issues that he highlighted was the importance of Malaysia honouring its commitment to supply water to its neighbour. In a joint press conference with Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong after the 10th Singapore-Malaysia Leaders Retreat on Monday, Anwar said there is a need for the two countries to collaborate on enhancing the capacity of the Johor River to supply enough water for the state's increasing needs and for the island republic as well.
Menangguhkan itu maknanya harga air itu masih kekal lama. Mempercepatkan itu maknanya ada keupayaan untuk meningkatkan sedikit kos harga air dan juga kesediaan Singapura untuk bersama menyelenggarakan projek di Sungai Johor yang akan memerlukan juga sedikit suntikan keuangan dari Singapura. Jadi bagi saya hal ini telah kita capai.
Both leaders also agreed to reconvene the Joint Technical Committee to resume discussions on measures to safeguard the water quality, aside from increasing the yield of the Johor River to ensure its sustainable supply as stipulated in the 1962 Johor River Water Agreement.
They haven't moved as fast as we would like them to. Sometimes there are reasons why things take time. But the PM and I both would like to move as expeditiously as we can to address these problems.
Separately, Lee announced that Malaysia and Singapore are conducting a feasibility study on a special economic zone, SEZ, to determine areas that require enhancement. Both countries will then sign a memorandum of understanding based on the outcome of the study by early next year. On another matter, Malaysia and Singapore have agreed that providing humanitarian assistance to Palestine is paramount. Datuk Seri Anwar said the common position was important, alluding to the different approach taken by each side since the Israel-Palestine conflict began on October 7th.
Anwar emphasized that although Malaysia took a much stronger position on the conflict, the country and Singapore also share a common stance, having voted in favor of the United Nations ceasefire and humanitarian resolution amid the ongoing bombardment of Gaza.
Because, as I've said, the whole issue is not what happened 2 weeks ago, but the issue what we term as politics of dispossession. I mean, countries cannot continue to colonize another part of the Palestinian lands. But what is critical for now is, of course, peace and stop the killings of civilians, babies and women. And of course, the sentiment in Malaysia is very strong.
Anwar said this to reporters at a joint press conference with Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong after the 10th Malaysia-Singapore Leaders Retreat on Monday. Meanwhile, Lee said although Singapore has diplomatic relations with Israel, it also has friendly relations with the Palestine Authority. He also believes that the conflict should not impact Singapore-Malaysia bilateral relations, noting that Singapore has made repeated statements about the conflict and condemned what's happening in the Middle East.
The violence, the human tragedy of civilians and innocent victims being killed and massacred, and hoping that the two parties can make progress towards a negotiated two-state solution to the Middle East. And I think Singaporeans understand where we stand.
Earlier, it was reported that Israeli troops and tanks has pushed deeper into Gaza on Monday advancing on two sides of the territory's main city, as the UN and medical staff warned that airstrikes have hit closer to hospitals, where tens of thousands of Palestinians have sought shelter alongside thousands of wounded. According to witnesses, tanks entered the Zaitun district in south of the Palestinian territory's main city, cutting a key road from the north to the south of the Gaza Strip for more than an hour. The Israeli army said it had struck more than 600 targets in 24 hours, up from 450 the previous day, in one of the most intense days of the conflict. The tank stayed for just over an hour and cars soon returned to the highway, driving onto the verge in the parts where craters made the road unusable. The Health Ministry in Gaza says to date, more than 8,000 people, mostly civilians, and more than half of them children, have since been killed in Israeli air and ground attacks. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris on Sunday said the country has absolutely no intention of sending American combat troops into Israel or Gaza amid fears over a wider regional conflict. Harris, who has been included in briefings and phone calls on the Middle East crisis, closely stuck to the administration's approach, supporting Israel's right to defend itself while also calling for the protection of civilians. However, Harris added that the Palestinians deserve equal measures of safety and security, self-determination and dignity, and that the rules of war must be adhered to and that there must be humanitarian aid that flows into the besieged enclave. In the meantime, President Joe Biden was reported to have spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi about the need for the continued flow of aid into Gaza and stressed the importance of protecting civilian lives. Subsidies and price controls on chicken will be discontinued beginning Wednesday. However, according to Agriculture and Food Security Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Sabu, subsidies for grade A, B and C eggs would continue according to the existing mechanism.
He said the rationale for ending subsidies in bulk for chicken is to reduce leakages of subsidies, which are also enjoyed by foreigners and high-income groups.
Penambatan subsidi ayam ini telah mengambil kira situasi dan tren semasa bekalan serta harga ladang dan kos pengeluaran ayam telah mulai stabil, yang menyumbang kepada harga pasaran semasa kini berada di bawah harga shilling.
The government would ensure the sale price of chicken, once floated, remains at a reasonable rate. He said the government would also continue to collaborate with all stakeholders to ensure the supply and prices of chicken at the farms remain stable and not burden the people, as well as ensuring there are no profiteering activities along the supply chain. He said through an engagement session with industry players on October 22nd, the government secured commitments from the industry to ensure that farm gate prices of chicken will not increase significantly and burden consumers. By ending chicken subsidies, the government could save about 100 million ringgit a month. He said the government had allocated a total of 3.8 billion ringgit in subsidies to cover the cost of chicken and eggs until February this year.
Titi Wangsa Member of Parliament Datuk Sri Johari Abdul Ghani on Monday reiterated his call for the government to remove the price cap for local white rice. At the moment, the price cap is set at RM2.60 per kilogram, which has been fixed since 2008.
Masa yang sama, apabila kita sekat harga RM26 ini, adakah Mahmud Menteri merasakan bahawa itu sudah jadi macam dah tak balance? Dan satu peringkat, pesawah nak harga padi yang baik. Kemudian, bila nak jual, tak boleh lebih daripada RM26. Sedangkan beras-beras import semua boleh jual. Bagaimanakah kita mengimbangi ini untuk memastikan bahawa satu hari nanti kita mempunyai beras yang mencukupi yang dikeluarkan oleh negara kita.
Sebab itulah kita lihat Kementerian Ekonomi, Kementerian Kewangan, KPKM kena berbincang. Dan supaya kalau berlaku kenaikan dan sebagainya, ia dapat dinikmati oleh semua pihak, win-win. Jadi pandangan Titi Wangsa itu berkali-kali beliau mengatakan supaya biarlah sikit sebanyak pasaran menentukan daripada kongkongan itu. Tapi kita akan lihat ini dari masa ke semasa.
He said this during the policy stage winding up session by Agriculture and Food Security Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Sabu. At the moment, the country's self-sufficiency level is between 61 and 62%, and there is a need to encourage more farmers to cultivate padi, subsequently to boost local rice production. Another Perikatan Nasional MP has declared support for Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. Labuan MP Suhaili Abdul Rahman said the decision was made after taking into consideration the grievances of his constituents who were burdened by the rising cost of living and persistent water and power disruptions.
Suhaili, who is Federal Territories Bersatu chief, also declared his support for Sabah Chief Minister and Gabungan Rakyat Sabah Chairman Hajiji Noor. However, Suhaili said he remains a member of Bersatu and will stay loyal to the party. He also said his decision to support Anwar was entirely voluntary and free from external pressure. Suhaili is a 3-term Labuan MP, having first won the parliamentary seat in the 1999 general election on a Barisan Nasional BN ticket and retaining it in the following general election in 2004.
After this breather, 12 dead after plane crashes in Brazil. Stay tuned. Bangladesh's leading opposition figure has been detained on Sunday as tensions mount between the country's governing party and opposition forces ahead of general elections due in January. Secretary-General of the opposition, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir, was picked up by law enforcement a day after mass anti-government protests rocked the capital, Dhaka. According to authorities, Alamgir had been detained for questioning over violence that broke out during Saturday's protests, which killed one police officer and one protester and injured many on both sides. His detention intensifies a crackdown as opposition figures have called on Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to resign, arguing she cannot be trusted to hold free and fair elections after being in office for more than 15 years. At least 12 people, including an infant, have died on Monday after a small plane crashed in the northwestern Brazilian state of Acre. According to officials, the plane was headed to Anvira, a small town in the neighboring Amazonas state of Brazil, when it crashed near the Rio Branco airport, killing all 10 passengers, as well as the pilot and the co-pilot. Investigations are currently underway to identify the victims and determine the cause of the accident. This is the second such incident in less than 2 months, when 14 people had perished on board a small jet that crashed in the Amazonas state in September. Formula One history as the first driver to take 16 victories in a season when he won a crash-halted and action-packed Mexico City Grand Prix.
The Dutch 26-year-old also equaled French great Alain Prost's haul of 51 career wins, with his fifth win in 6 editions of the Mexican race at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton finished second with fastest lap, and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc was third in a race red flagged and restarted just before the halfway point when Haas's Kevin Magnussen crashed heavily. Verstappen's under-pressure Mexican teammate Sergio Perez retired after colliding with pole sitter Leclerc as he tried to pass into the first corner.
When we return, foreigner charged with murder of fellow countryman. Don't go away. A 32-year-old Rohingya man has been charged in the Kota Baru Magistrates Court with the murder of a fellow countryman in October last year. No plea was recorded from the accused, Muhammad Salam Muhammad Rashid, as murder cases are under the purview of the High Court.
The court also set January 31st for remention of the case. According to the charge sheet, Muhammad Salam is accused of killing Nurul Salam Muhammad Sadiq in Kampung Melo on October 17th last year. The 44-year-old victim was reported to have been stabbed about 40 times, including in the chest area. The motive for the incident is believed to be jealousy, as it is believed that the victim had a relationship with the accuser's wife. The charge under Section 302 of the Penal Code carries the death penalty upon conviction.
In other news, KTM's ridership has been on the decline since 2016, and the situation worsened during the COVID-19 pandemic. The big question is, what can the service do to boost those numbers? FMT's Danish Raja Reza has the report.
138 years. That's how long railways have served as the backbone for transport in peninsular Malaysia. The colonial-era railways have undergone a lot of change and are now run by KTM. These days, the air-conditioned KTM trains run on electricity, and it still serves as a vital bridge between the north and south on the west coast. Despite its importance, KTM trains seem to be a bit more spacious these days with much fewer passengers. In 2016, KTM had a daily average of 83,315 passengers. But according to KTM's most recent statistics, that number plummeted to just 16,164 in 2021. So why are fewer people riding the KTM?
So I definitely need to take a car or a Grab to reach to my KTM station. But since I live quite nearby, so my family would fetch me to the station.
Transport consultant Go Bok-Yen says the problem is that many KTM tracks existed before many parts of the country, especially the Klang Valley, were developed.
The locations of the routes are not following the trends of the land use development to begin with. So the track is actually more like a backyard routing. So it doesn't actually go through the main catchment.
There's also the problem of finding a parking spot near KTM stations, even if you wanted to park and ride.
Kalau kita tengok parking di kawasan KTM pun sangat limited. Jadi bagi pengguna yang membawa kereta, memang kita terpaksa cari parking di luar kawasan parking KTM.
So what can be done? Railwaymen Union of Malaya President Muhammad Faisal Shahibul Kiraya says KTM should consider offering shuttle services.
Feeder bus itu salah satu cadangan untuk sekurang-kurangnya menarik. Maknanya customer dia utama dia nak pergi ke destinasi, terutama sekali kerja lah, waktu kerja. Maknanya pergi, dia nak elak jam dengan nak selesaikan masalah parking.
There are also other ideas to boost ridership.
First of all, you need to have a total review of the accessibility of their stations. Some stations you need to relocate, you will relocate. And some stations you find that you need to have a good connectivities, with the catchment. So you need to reorientate its accessibility of their stations with the new trends of development.
Realigning tracks and relocating stations sounds like a massive undertaking, and it may well be costly and time-consuming. But the KTM has a history of delivering for the people and the nation. Making it more accessible can only be a good thing. Danish Rajareza, FMT for Nightline.
Think you know all there is to know about our capital city? Think again. One man is on a mission to uncover the hidden mysteries of Kuala Lumpur. FMT's Alina Nadia and Thivya Raghu have the story.
There's more to our capital city than meets the eye. Video journalist Amirul Ruslan has documented the unsolved mysteries of Kuala Lumpur under his online handle, The Cool Things.
So The Cool Things is a short video content platform that I use to tell stories about KL that I feel undertold, because KL is a huge city with over 10 million people and it sprawls out so much, yet I've always been frustrated that this city is often told only by the stories of the main districts or the popular trendy places.
Always looking for clues, the sleuth puts on his journalistic hat and relies on archives, libraries, and local knowledge to piece together his jigsaw puzzle du jour. In conjunction with World Cities Day, FMT Lifestyle joins Amirul as he explores his first KL mystery, street signs belonging to cities in France mysteriously hung up in a Chowkit back alley.
One is Rue de Rivoli in Paris and Rue Asali in Nice. I've done my investigation into it. These signs have been here since at least 1989, which means they've been here longer than I've been alive. So for 34 years, someone planted them for some mystery purpose that we still don't know about. And in that time, it's just been forgotten.
The mystery even drew the attention of the French embassy and the Alliance Française, with one theory linking the signs to a cultural program. On the same street lies another French-themed mystery, an Art Deco-style mural of Café Le Glace, one of Denmark's oldest patisseries, with a Parisian address, 32 Avenue de l'Opéra. While there is no immediate connection between the two, 32 Avenue de l'Opéra is an 8-minute walk away from the very real Rue de Rivoli in Paris. This brings us to Amirul's next mystery. Near the Bank Negara KTM station, the now forgotten Residency station. Said to have been the first railway station in Kuala Lumpur, it was constructed on the line to Batu Junction, passing through the grounds of the British Residency, and was for private use. Amirul came across a 1903 Selangor State document which declared the closure of Residency Station. Later records indicated it was converted to quarters for railway staff, while a 1925 article refers to a meeting of the Engineering Association of Malaya at Residency Station.
Could it have been demolished by 1917 when the KL railway station was completed? So far, nobody knows for sure.
Tibia Ragu and Alina Nadia, FMT Lifestyle for Nightline.
From Beowulf and George R.R. Martin's A Game of Thrones to live-action role-play costumes and Gandalf stuff from the Lord of the Rings films, a new London exhibition opening delves into the magical world of the fantasy genre. As we wrap up Nightline this time around, let's take a look as the British Library features more than 100 items from around the world, including manuscripts, first editions, games, film props and costumes. And with that, I'm Lena Hassanel. Thank you for watching and be well, Malaysia.